right, so I know I say this every week, but it's true again. We have a lot to go through today, and I thought that there was real benefit in going over procrastination a bit, particularly as it relates to, and I know everybody goes, oh, that's not me. No, but it can be, like many things, a spectrum. Are you anywhere on the continuum of perfectionistic, even with respect to the goals you're setting for yourself? All right. And the interesting thing, I hope the takeaway message today is that, let Rita in here, is that you don't have to be perfect to be a perfectionist. It can be harboring back there in your dreams, in how you'd like it to be, in how you were taught it should be, in what you really believe, oh, to some degree, you're aiming for. All right. And it's a setup, frankly. Okay, so let's start. Oh, the other thing I wanted to announce too is I'm going to be, probably by sometime in May, definitely by the end of May, I'm going to be running the hoarding support groups again. All right. Now, these are not free, but I thought for anybody who's feeling like they're ready for the next step and they can't afford one-to-one counseling. You're muted, Elaine.
Elaine, we can hear you.
No sound.
I don't know how I got muted. All right. Okay, let's start over. Good morning, everybody. It is great to see you again. And so I thought that there was some real benefit in returning and going over and doing kind of a refresher on procrastination. So many people are saying, I can't get started. All right. The hardest part, mind you, the hardest part is always getting started. I would be lying to you if I told you that I think that ever goes away entirely. I don't think it does. It's not like it's something that you're just dying to do, right? So let's set some realistic expectations here. But the other thing that does get in the way are all of the rules, all of the standards, all of the what you think that goal you're setting for yourself actually looks like and is possible. All right. If you hit perfectionistic standards, don't blink your eyes because they're not going to last that long. They are transitory things. And so they're also very undermining and not a habit that's going to lead you anywhere you really want to go. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is that sometime in May, definitely by the end of May, I'm going to restart the hoarding support groups. And the hoarding support groups are going to be hoarding level 1, all right, and hoarding level 3. So hoarding level 3 is for individuals who have been part of, at some time, the hoarding level 1 support group. And we move, there's actually a hoarding level 2, but probably there won't be enough people to fit a group right away. That probably will run in the fall. It's not, it is a for fee service. The groups, I think that what we will do for the hoarding level 1 is make it 8 weeks, consecutive weeks, all right? And the hoarding level 3 generally is about 12 weeks. And we have done it on alternate weeks because by the time you're in a level 3 hoarding support group, we're actually working on the stuff. We're working on the things. We're also working at an emotional level to head off the ways we get diverted, distracted, undermined. All right, so I just wanted to let you know, in case that's something that you believe you're ready for and would work for you. There will be information posted on the website. So keep your eye open for that. And let's get started on today. I'm going to let somebody in here. There we go. Okay. Have you ever thought of procrastination as an aid? Anybody? Anybody thought, it's not that what I'm aiming for, but it kind of works for me. Okay, so long as we understand how that's working for you and how that's working against you, because it's always a balance. All right, okay. So I believe, and so does Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan, the authors of Procrastination, highly recommend the book, that the problem with procrastination is it is founded on a very damaging belief. And that is that our self-worth, the fundamental value of who we are as people, as human beings, all right, is based on our ability. And our ability is based on one thing only, and that is our performance. So if you're not performing, apparently, a lot of people result in, I'm not worth much if I'm not performing. You were born worthy. On your best day, on your worst day, my friends, you are worthy. Okay? Your value as a human being, the contribution you make to your environment, and I'm not talking about the piles, but the people who love you, the people who count on you, the people you count on. All right. And you are as worthy on your worst day as you are on your best day. It's got nothing to do with your performance. So if you're not doing well, I want you to still be gentle with yourself. I want you to treat yourself with the same love and respect that you would with the person you cherish most in this world. All right. Okay. So when we do result in procrastination, it can actually serve a purpose. It can protect us against feelings of inadequacy, because it isn't because of us. It's because of, and we'll go through some of the reasons why we can give ourselves to buffer ourselves from the fact that this isn't working. All right. This isn't working, and I want and need it to work because I don't want to live with the side effects of it anymore. So when we procrastinate, we need to ask ourselves, is what we are actually achieving, that procrastination, when we face it down, that procrastination, our performance, can no longer be equated to our ability? Now, that's a risky thing to think of. Think about that. So what I'm actually achieving has got nothing to do with my ability. I am able to do what I need to do, but I'm telling myself I can't because of. That's a risky thing to peel the lid off of. Don't underestimate that one, because what have you got? What have you got then, right? So it also means, therefore, a complete effort hasn't been made, all right? And no matter what the level of outcome, our belief of self-worth and ability. We can still preserve that. But when we attribute the lack of performance, the lack of completion, the lack of product to something else, are we giving ourselves an out? Can we just say, for whatever reason, you know what? Clearly, I'm not ready. It's not that I can't, I can. I'm not. I'm not doing it. And I am as worthy, I am as capable. My ability hasn't really changed. I just choose to look at it in a way that means I don't get on with it. So, procrastination is another thing that can allow us to comfort ourselves by believing that our ability is as high as our ego needs it to be. We're still able, but when we tell ourselves, when we procrastinate and we don't just own the fact I'm making a choice not to, we attribute it to something else. All right. It's sort of like we're hiding behind that thing so that we can still believe I'm as capable, I'm as whatever, as I always was. And as long as we procrastinate, we never have to confront the true limits of our ability because we've attributed it to something else. All right. For some, the consequences of procrastination are preferable. Have you ever been in that situation where what you tell yourself, even though there's a little, I believe in Frick and Frack, and Frick says, Frick is the one who tells us the truth. Frack is the one that gets us into trouble. And Frack is saying, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And Frick is saying, come on, look in the mirror, tell yourself the truth, tell yourself the truth. Right? Well, for some, the consequences of procrastination, Frack, are preferable to the pain of trying our best and it not turning out well. What would happen if you really gave it your best and it didn't turn out to be what you wanted it to be? What would happen then? Can I give you a hint? You'd be like the rest of the world. Whatever you do, for heaven's sakes, rip the Band-Aid off and just tell yourself the best truth that you're able to face today. All right? Because if we don't do that, we can instead hold accountable things like, I'm disorganized. You might be disorganized. All right? But disorganization cannot be the whole answer to why you're not getting started. Just can't be. Nothing that fundamental can be about one thing alone. Just can't be. It's more complex than that. Sometimes we revert to nasty things like calling ourselves unkind names. I'm lazy. I'm just lazy. No, you're not lazy. You're stuck. And you're not looking at the truth as you need to look at it. All right. And if you don't see the truth, you can't solve the problem. You can only solve the piece that you're prepared to look at. Stop calling yourself names. Stop blaming yourself. Start asking yourself. So I've been calling myself lazy for a while here. I've been calling myself messy. I've been calling myself disorganized. I've been calling myself depressed. I've been calling myself anxious. All of those things may be true, but they are not your entirety. They do not make up your entire self. What is getting in the way? Not being able to do it. Okay, so people, right now, take a paper out and a pen. And if you are not able, if you're right now in a state, accept it. Don't blame it. Don't blame yourself. There's no point. If you are not able right now to get started, all right, and to do somewhere between 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, all right, fill this in. If you procrastinate, what are you saying to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? If anybody wants to share that in the chat box, that would be a good thing. Then we can pick those up next week and we can start dealing with those things. All right. Now, here's a challenge I have for you. If we made a different choice and we face doing what we can do, now it might be a small amount, all right? It might not handle the whole issue that you've got to deal with. But if we made a different choice and we face doing what we can do versus accepting the entirety, bring me to a grinding halt, can't get up and get started about what we believe we can't do, if we didn't give ourselves a reason that we embrace as enough to explain not getting started, might we have to view ourselves more harshly? Because remember, if we're procrastinating and we're telling ourselves that it's because of something else, that's the thing we're hanging our hat on, right? But if we didn't hang our hat on that, we said, well, that's a piece of it. That is a piece. I mean, I'm not saying none of those things are important. They are. But we are more than that. If we didn't ask ourselves instead, what can I do today? If I can't do the biggie, what can I do today? What would we have to say to ourselves if we still chose not to do it? Write down that description. Because by giving ourselves, by making our choice can't at all, rather than a much smaller piece of can. Can is probably not going to nail it. It's probably not going to get the whole job done. But if every day you asked yourself, okay, I have a little more to give today. I have a little less. I did well to get out of bed today. What can I do? If we went for can, no matter how big, small, doesn't matter. It's can. If we went for that every day, all right, where would we be now? We would not be saying ourselves, I can't get started. Because maybe those, I don't know, maybe those 3 spoons you picked up off the counter, all right, maybe taking the cloth when you spill something and you wipe it, maybe taking 2 things out of a pile and saying, hello, friend, what are we going to do with you today? All right. You do that every day, you would be surprised. You know how they built the pyramids? They built them 1 stone at a time. All right. They built them 1 stone at a time. You know that path from your house out? You look at the sidewalk. They laid that sidewalk 1 small section at a time. You do 1 thing at a time based on what you can do today, you will surprise yourself. So stop with the mean talk. Stop with the digging yourself in about other things that are true. Depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD. All that means with ADD and ADHD is that you may be picking those things up more than once. All right. Just because that's the way it works. All right. But at least if we're telling ourselves what we can do, that little bit we can do, we're facing down the double bind we put ourselves in by the loop of, I could do it, but, okay? But is like a boulder that we trip over. And so sometimes with that procrastination, sometimes, actually, I think to a relatively incongruous, seemingly contradictory way, there quite often is an underpinning of some level of perfectionism. All right. So, in an effort to prove that we're good enough, we attempt the impossible. And that's what we do when we sit there and we look at a room that is filled with piles or a counter that has taken weeks and weeks and months to construct and think we're going to clear the counter today. You may, but it will be a really unusually great day. All right. And you may not. It's what we tell ourselves walking away from that. In an effort to prove that we're good enough, we set those unrealistic, impossible standards. All right. And then we do another little trick with ourselves to undermine ourselves. We believe. We don't judge, okay, when was the last time I actually did that and accomplished it? What would it be like to say, I'd like to do that. I'd like to clear that table. But if I can do however many 15-minute sections I need of time dedicated, I surely will. And I will be satisfied. All right. I will be satisfied with myself for the 15 minutes I put in, however many times I have to put in to clear the area that is most aggravating to me. When we believe, okay, in our fervor, in our excitement, that we should be up to the highest standards and goals, I want us to sit down. Just put yourself on pause when you tell yourself that, because the number of people I hear who tell me that, you know, they underestimate what it's going to take to accomplish any goal that they set. All right. So, hello, the kindest, most reality-based thing you can do then is when you set a goal to put yourself on pause and say, when was the last time I actually did that? All right. And I actually accomplished it and I actually finished it. And am I setting myself up? Am I setting myself up never to be happy with myself, never to be satisfied with my effort? Now, the other thing I want you to check is whose voice, or maybe you've repeated the voice, what the voice is saying, all right, from the committee. You heard about the committee? Those are all the people in our lives who had an opinion. And the loudest voices are generally those opinions that we were most responsible for listening to, all right? Surprise, surprise, many of them came from childhood. All right, so whose voice is on that message? And are you repeating it to yourself? And have you repeated that unrealistic message, that judgmental message that was never part of your skill set? You have other skills. The criticism of, well, you know, you left this little bit. You know, the people who were never satisfied with anything, no matter how well it was done, you know those people? All right. So Have you said that to yourself, and are you continuing to say that to yourself to undermine yourself? Have you voiced over all of those? It's only good enough if. There's an exercise I'd like us to do right now. That paper and pen, pull it out again. And if you're someone who does make a contract with yourself, sounding something similar to, it's only good enough if. What's the if? You can put that in the chat box too. I want to hear those. Because all of those, if those are not messages that you are giving yourself based on actual things you've actually accomplished on a regular basis, you know that's your baseline. If it's not, then I'm here to tell you, if you don't already know, you haven't bumped your head enough on it, that it's unrealistic. The likelihood that that if is going to happen, slim and none. All right, slim and none. So here's the next question then. Look into your own heart, look into your own experience, look into your own values, your own fears, your own wishes for yourself. What would make an effort good enough? How will you know it? How will you know it when you achieve it? Because you can't hit a target if you don't know what it looks like. And the most powerful targets, the most powerful goals are the ones that speak to who we are, what we want for our life, what we know because we've actually seen ourselves achieve it. We know we can do that. We have faith and confidence that we can do that. Now, depending on the context, all right, Suzanne mentioned she's got COVID right now. It's probably not her most productive time. Context is everything. Maybe you've got to take that realistic goal. It might be buying. It might be shopping. You've got to take that realistic goal and you have to break it down into doable chunks. All right. So we repeatedly, because if we don't do that, we repeatedly overwhelm ourselves. All right. We repeatedly whip ourselves with unmet standards. Why do we need to learn that we're doing that? Why do we need to learn from that experience? Anybody? You can unmute yourself and yell it into your mic. Why would we need to repeat that message that undermines us? Because we're not looking at what is real. We're not looking at our reality. That's like opening a magazine. You know those magazines where you open it and it's this kitchen that's from heaven, and you think, oh, I'd like a kitchen like that. And then you look around and you think, nobody lives in that house. And nobody lives in that house. We need to learn from our own personal experience what we have proven to ourselves we are capable of and build from there. When we do that, we will be increasingly capable of doing slightly more and slightly more and slightly more and slightly more. I want your motto this week to be slightly more, slightly more, and slightly more, and slightly more. And you will get there. You keep looking at things through rose-colored glasses, unrealistic standards that you rarely, if ever, can meet, you're going to be here forever. You're going to be here forever because you can't do more than you prove to yourself you can do. other homework I want to give you this week is this week, stop saying I can't. Take it out of your vocabulary. What can I do right now? There are things I need to achieve, things I want to achieve. I want to prove it to myself. What can I do? And write it down, particularly if you've got any level of memory fuzziness or ADD or ADHD or depression, anxiety. Today's goal, there it is. Now, if you're looking at today's goal 6 days from now, probably, that was not meant as humor, probably it's unrealistic. Break it down. Break it down. And have you ever heard the theory that the most powerful lessons that we learn, most living things learn, end on a success? They end on a success, always end on a success. Because if you set things up that you are always disappointed, you never quite got there, right? There was probably something wrong with the plan because you are perfect the way you are. You're here, you're trying, you're working, you're sincere, right? It's probably the plan has a fault in it. Learn from experience. Then you don't need procrastination as a safe and comfortable retreat, right? So when we look at procrastination, and perfectionism, there basically are two types. I went through this a little bit last week, just a quick catch up. So like hoarding, like many things, there's adaptive perfectionism. It's not actually perfectionism, but it's standards. And there's maladaptive. So adaptive is when we have high standards, we know how to do that thing. All right. And we believe that we are up to that standard. We believe it. We believe it based on experience, not guess and golly. All right. Or because we want to. And we take pride in the fact that when it's especially important, not every single time we lay our hands to something, we do pretty darn well. Okay. If we don't exactly meet that high standard, we're coming pretty close. And you know what? It's good enough. It's good enough. And we allow ourselves to feel good about what we're doing. Now, maladaptive is when those standards either aren't yours, there is no experiential history of you ever reaching that. It's not your skill set. All right. It's not your skill set. You still have to do it, but it's always going to be a challenge. But we still want the highest standards. We want the way mom, dad, whoever said it had to be. We're not going to blame moms and dads, but generally it comes from some position of authority, all right? Or the book. The book says this is the right way to do it. Whatever way gets it done is the right way to do it. And however it turns out that it is useful and you're satisfied, you can actually use the thing, that's the best way, folks. All right, close the book. If you do things, whatever it is, all right, clear the table, don't go on, I'll use my example, don't go on Ribicoff and fall in love with everything and then say, oh, gee, and close it down. Luckily, I close it down. I have to walk the talk. Whatever, you don't order 600 bags of Hawkins cheesies because you're not metric, and then have to give them all away. Whatever it is, all right? Don't end on disappointment. Don't end on being dissatisfied with yourself. There's something wrong with the plan. Do what you need to do, the best way you can do it, and continue until it's finished. That might take you a few tries. All right. Always finish. Always, 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 always finish. One thing finished is worth 10 things started. Don't flit. Don't flit. Okay. And don't end on a disappointing note. Why would you go back to it? So when we set those really high, really, really high standards, and we often disappoint ourselves, people, the only conclusion to make is that there is a gap between the standards and our performance. Don't make it personal. Don't have your first knee-jerk reaction be self-criticism. Now, that's not to say it's okay either. It may not be okay, depending on what it is. But what I want you to do instead of self-blame and disappointment is I want you to go to self-introspection. Put yourself on pause. That didn't work out the way I hoped it would. I needed it to. What was wrong? Where is the flaw? Where is the flaw in this goal? Where was the flaw in my plan? Don't make it personal. You undermine yourself. Because the more you end on a disappointing note, the more you use nasty, judgmental words, the more you're satisfied with you, didn't work out, I failed, the more vulnerable you are to feeding whatever level of depression. All right. Negative, 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 negative. Never let any, not when you're doing it to yourself, not when the people you love are doing it to you. You end up just chipping away at your self-esteem until there isn't any left. When you find yourself worrying about making mistakes even before you've made them, all right, that should be a tip off. How is that ever going to get you there? If you develop the habit as you do a step at a time, stop for a second, assess, how are we doing here? Am I on track? Another step forward. Oh, it didn't work that well. What went wrong? Adapt, adapt, adapt. All right. Okay. What's the healthy balance then? Always strive for your best A game at whatever specific task you're doing. Set a reasonable length of time to do it. And if you historically always underestimate how long it takes, quadruple the time. You are better to get there in 4 or 6 steps than never to get there because you were so discouraged you gave up. Better, smaller chunks. Accept there will be bad days. And guess what? Our performance, your performance, my performance will temporarily be affected. You make it personal, you continue to make it personal, you're looking at a life sentence here. All right? Self-respect is a huge, huge motivator. It's the thing that keeps us up on our pegs. Learn to tolerate frustration. Anybody had a frustrating week this week? I have lots of hands going up. Yes. Learn to tolerate it. Deep breath. Okay, that's not a repeat I want. What do I need to adapt? And guess what? Sometimes, despite our best efforts, there will be disappointments. We didn't meet our goal. Tomorrow's another day, Scarlett. Fresh try. Fresh try. Don't make it personal. That didn't work. It isn't about me being a failure. It's about I made a choice that I thought would work. It wasn't what was needed to reach what I needed to do. I need to adapt. I need to adapt what I'm doing because I am worthy and I am worthy of the outcome I set for myself. Okay. The other thing too, just not that any of us would do this, but if we didn't succeed, don't make it about ourselves personally, our failure, inadequacy. Don't need to make it about anybody else either. All right? Don't be that person. Maybe you were taught, maybe you learned, maybe it's a habit, all right, where somebody's always got to be to blame if something doesn't work out. Somebody's always got to be to blame. Okay? Pause, reflect, improve the plan, adjust the effort. Maybe you're trying too hard. All right? Maybe you don't have the tools or resources right now. Maybe you misjudged the size of that goal. Maybe you need to take a different strategy. But I'll tell you the one thing. If you continue to adapt rather than defeat yourself, you will keep going forward. It will be in smaller chunks of effort, smaller steps, but you will be giving yourself everything you need to keep going until it's finished. Now, is there anybody out here in our gathering today? Somebody's waiting. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to let Wendy in. Who believes that if it isn't the way it needs to be, the way it should be, it's not acceptable? Anybody? Hands up. Okay. And is there anybody out there who feels that the only thing that's worthwhile is not being ordinary, being extraordinary? It's got to be extraordinary for it to be worthwhile. Otherwise, it's just mundane. And that only the ideal, as it should be, okay, is acceptable. Sometimes I find myself doing that to myself, no one else. All right. It was a low moment this morning when I found that whoever was giving the dogs their pills in the morning, probably with cheese whiz, somehow was getting it all over the cupboard and the handle. And then I had to stop and remind I know, it was a wonderful feeling getting cheese whiz when you're in a hurry. And particularly the cheese whiz that happened there probably earlier in the week that got stuck on. That was a highlight. Okay. And I'm not terribly fussy. All right. But I don't know. There was something about cheese whiz on a yellow cabinet just didn't do it for me. And you know what? Then I had to stop and say to myself, Elaine, give your head a shake. Yeah, cheese whiz on the cabinet is not a good thing. But somebody gave the dog their pills. Make a choice. Make a choice. So I invite you, when things don't go the way you want, need, and they should be. All right. What is there in that, however that got that way, that might actually be a positive that you're not looking at? So in the balance, despite how negative it feels, is there any positive that you should be grateful for or you should appreciate? All right. Because quite often when we're going for the ideal, all the good stuff underneath doesn't matter enough because it didn't. We're talking ourselves out of a lot of good stuff. We're not grateful for a lot of good stuff and appreciative for the strength we show when we keep going, even when it is an uphill struggle. That is something I want you this week as well. Third piece of homework. Stop and celebrate yourself. Appreciate yourself for the effort you are making. No, you're not there yet, but that's not to say that the effort and the perseverance that you are showing, the commitment by being here every week to try to find a little nugget that will improve the plan, bolster your determination, keep you going. All right. There's a lot of applause to you that I give you for continuing to make the effort that I know and you know basically that you're worthy of. You know what? Mistakes and flaws, guess what? That's part of the learning process. If they don't happen, then you can't observe those and avoid them next time. Mistakes and flaws are things to learn from, to observe, because sooner or later, the context we're doing everything in is going to be played out differently, right? These are things that randomly can happen. I'm not talking about cheese whiz on a cupboard. There will be discussions, but I'm just saying that when flaws and mistakes happen, if they didn't happen this time, they were going to happen some other time. It's the random chance. We learn from them. We don't have to repeat them then. Procrastination, though, if we make that choice, lets us continue believing that with more or better effort, when we don't accept good enough, most of the time, we hide in procrastination. We could have reached the ideal if only. Just let go of the if onlys. Do yourself a favor this week. If anybody out there is saying if only is Disneyland, all right? It isn't part of the real world. If only has a random chance of happening. I wouldn't put my bet down on if only and hope that that happens next time. The little bit you can do, that's what I'd put my number down on, and I'd keep plugging away at it. All right. So let me look at some of these. Oh, we've got 52 questions. Hold on a sec. Let's go back up to the top and we will take it from the top. Yeah, sorry, Dammy. Yeah, I didn't realize that I was muted. Let me have a look. Joan, it's bigger than me. Not sure what to do with all of this stuff. Regrets of what I've thrown or gave away. Okay, we'll talk about that, Joan. Maureen, we are saying we're afraid of failing or succeeding. Both actually, Maureen. If we fail, is there something? First of all, we never completely fail. If we try, we have achieved something. It is an effort made never results in a total failure. All right, it never results in a total failure, because in that effort, there are things for us to learn from. one of the other things is to judge the context. Remember, I said way, way back, before you start, plumb your depths. Take your, when I say take your temperature, I don't mean take your temperature in your mouth. I mean, gauge, what do you have in the tank? Right? And don't promise more than that. That guarantees a lack of success. And so sometimes when we fail, sometimes we misjudge the context. Okay, it wasn't our best day. I'm sure Suzanne, I keep talking about Suzanne, but I'm sure today Suzanne's standards are going to have to be lower. She's got COVID. All right. Well, Suzanne 3 weeks from now or 3 weeks ago was a different context. So adapt and adjust. When I procrastinate, I'm saying to myself that I'm not worth the timely effort it takes to be truly free. Okay, Cindy, I'm going to come back to that one. When you say the timely effort, do you mean timely in the sense of in this moment timely, or do you mean the amount of time and effort that it would take to be truly free? And are you talking about free from all of the feelings and the self-judgment, or are you talking about free from the piles and pathways? If you could send that to me, I will adjust, and then next week we'll handle the rest of these questions. Oh, there's a new one. Okay, so let's have a look here now. Free from piles. Okay, free from piles. All right. One of the things I think I told you last week, and we will be doing it, is, and would the person like to take a bow or not? When I talk about the videos. Thumbs up if the person would like to take a bow now and be introduced. Okay, so San, over in the corner, San has volunteered to have me work with her, and we're going to be doing videos of specific types of activities that I'm hoping will show maybe better or more efficient ways or more effective ways of getting certain types of things done. So if there are certain types of actions, if there's certain types of choices that you find particularly difficult, would you send them to me now in the chat? And then San and I will put our heads together, and we will make those the topic as we work through her things, the topic of a video. All right, and I'll bring the videos, and we'll have a video like we did in one of the other podcasts about sorting paper, for instance. Okay, I'm new to this, based in the UK. Hello, is it Denise? Hello. Thanks for the email. I take it this happens every week. I'd like to come every week. I'm also interested in the level 1 sessions. My email is okay. I will be in touch with you. We have somebody here from the UK today. Welcome, welcome. And Miami and St. Louis, and we've got people from all over the place. All right, let me have a look. Alina from Miami. Thank you for your words of courage. Yes, good for you. I'm congratulating myself on big and small efforts I'm doing. Keep going, little by little. Little by little gets you there. Little by little gets you. You know, so there's kind of a metaphor. I hope it isn't too hokey, but it just occurred to me. Everybody right now, write down how tall you are. Mhm. Write down how tall you are. How did you get that big? Did you wake up one morning and boom, you were 5'2"? And while you were growing, did you feel inadequate because you're not at 5'2" yet? Now, some of you I know exceed 5'2". 5'2" is my max. Do you see what I'm saying? All right. It's just irrational to judge yourself for not being perfect, because nothing is true or false out of its context. There are difficult decisions to make. There are. All right. And those decisions take reflection and they take effort. And sometimes they take an emotional adjustment. San and I were talking in a video that I will show about inheriting a lot of things from family members who worked really, really hard, overcame an awful lot to have those things. And so the difficulty in rarely is that the relationship that San expressed having for the item itself usually was not the powerful thing. It was the respect and the admiration for the effort the person made and had to continue persevering making to have those things. Here's why I'm going to end on this note. I want you to think about this week. All right. That respect is still there. You still have that respect. That effort was still made. All right. That person was everything that you believe and honor. That's true. But if you attach that to intangible objects, all right, even tangible objects, if you attach it to tangible objects, something's going to happen to those. Something is going to happen to those things. And the grief that you are avoiding in accepting that the things are whatever they are, and they meant a lot to that person, but they are not that person, right? If you can look at those things for what they actually are, they are tangible objects. They don't hold the person, all right? They are symbols of an effort. But the courage and the thing you want to honor is the person. You don't do it by attaching it like somehow that thing is equivalent to. Because when that happens, first of all, I think we diminish the person. All right. And I swear something is going to happen to those things. I got home from Mississauga and my enterprising little Frenchie Coco managed to chew off a piece of trim on a lovely side table. All right. She's a bit of a mischief maker. And there it was, chewed to pieces on the floor. Right? The table is a table. The things are things. And the respect, the love that you have for that, and admiration for that person, they're inside you. They always are, they always will be. All right. The things are just things. Now, if you happen to love them, then you have an aesthetic attachment as well. But things are just things. And we can love them, but you know what? It's not the wisest investment of our emotion and our attachment to attach to those things, because they will never love us back. They will never love us back. They're not enough. They're only temporary reminders. So if we're delaying grief, then let's deal with the grief. Let's deal with the grief. Okay, this week homework. Tell yourself the truth, the unbridled truth, and let the chips fall where they may. All right? Tell yourself what you can do, and no matter how big, how small, how minuscule, it doesn't matter. All right, and convert that to what you do. Remember that however tall you are, you weren't inadequate. You weren't inadequate before you were that tall. All right. And there are many ways that we all continue growing. But we do it by telling ourselves the unbridled truth and adapting our plan to meet that truth. And we are more than the labels that we carry, no matter whether it's depressed, anxious, hoarding, ADD, ADHD, whatever other labels are out there. We are more than the labels. Perseverance, people. Perseverance. We'll get there together. Send me an email, anybody who is interested in the Hoarding Level 1 Hoarding Support Group. If anybody has been part of the Hoarding Level 2 and they're interested in the Hoarding Level 3, send that to me as well. And I'm interested as well if anybody has applied to the Hoarders Canada show. Let me know that as well. We will see you next week. Thanks for being the highlight of mine. Take care, everybody.